Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
the Christian Girl's Guide to Modern Dating.
We're here to help you date with confidence while honoring the Lord and to show you that your identity and contentment are in Christ. We're going to give you the tools that you need to date successfully and be set up well for success in a godly marriage.
If you've ever felt like you didn't really belong with any of the extremes in dating today, well, you're not alone. Neither did we. And that's why we're here looking for the middle.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Looking for the Middle. We're so glad you're here. Apparently, I'm already boring Bethany because she's yawning as I'm talking.
You called me out like that.
Oh, man. You know, there's beauty in being a podcaster because, like, visually, there is nothing. So we can
Thank
show
goodness.
up not, you know.
Could?
Yeah. There have been times we look presentable, and then there are other times where it's like, nope, I just woke up 20 minutes ago.
We do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm sitting here.
Bethany worked
like
out this morning.
Mess,
she worked
y'all.
out. That's for a good reason.
Okay, fine.
Your messy bun looks good.
Thank you.
Note for the audio.
Thank you.
But yes, but then we can also rat each other out when we're making like last episode when we talked about wings and you're like flapping your elbow. Oh my gosh. You got to tell people that. So that way they can get a mental picture. Yes. This is what it would be like to be friends with Bethany and Kristen. So here we are. Well, today we are going to be talking about a pretty deep subject. Yeah. What does pursuit look like? We get questions all the time about, am I pursuing a guy if I do this? Or is it okay for me to ask a guy out? Or what is pursuit, you know?
How do I know
if he's pursuing me or not? And, you know, what should my expectation be? And so we thought, why don't we just talk about it all in one episode? But before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, we send that out every Thursday. So that'll come out tomorrow, where we send you guys a bunch of extra resources about dating, singleness, relationships, whether it's books, blogs, podcast episodes from other people, YouTube videos we found. There's a Hallmark movie of the month, which this is the season you need to get on the newsletter list because starting in late October, we'll start Hallmark movie of the week because of all the Christmas movies. So
and you can judge us all you want to. We don't care.
Nope.
We love them.
We will continue watching them, even if we're the only two people watching them on Earth.
Which we did a deep dive into Hallmark movies last season, and spoiler alert, we're not the only people watching them. So we know a lot of you guys just don't admit it to it.
Exactly.
So there
you go. So go make sure you sign up for our newsletter. You can do that either on our website, lookingforthemiddle.com, or you can sign up at the link in our bio on Instagram. You can find us there at LFTM_podcast. We are on there the most between Instagram and Facebook. We're on Facebook, but Facebook is basically just hey, everything that's on Instagram goes to Facebook for those of you who don't have Instagram. So check us out over there. We are always having a fun time over there. So be sure and do that. Now, Bethany's turn for question of the day.
Okay.
What is your question?
It's not a hard one, don't worry.
Oh, good. That always makes me feel better when you tell me that.
It's not, don't worry. What is your favorite snack for watching TV?
Ooh.
I didn't think it was a hard one.
So many choices.
You can have a few.
Okay.
We're not going to limit the snack choices.
The first thing that comes to my mind is tortilla chips and sour cream. Everybody gives me weird looks about that.
I wish they had videos so they could see my face.
I know.
Ew.
I know. Everybody makes weird faces. I have loved that since I was a little kid. Melanie does kettle chips and sour cream. I got her on that.
Just straight up sour cream.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. I love sour cream. I have to buy like the big containers of sour cream when I go to the grocery store because I eat so much of it. So that's my first thing. The white cheddar baked Cheetos I've been really obsessed with recently. So that, and then ice cream.
Okay.
Obviously.
Ice cream was my number one. So I would say ice cream is top for me, but any kind of chips and dip is up there. It's mindless.
Exactly. Which is terrifying.
I know.
Because then I'm like, wow, I've eaten half this bag. How long have I been on this couch? Which mine too is like dependent on the time of day. If it's afternoon, I want salty.
Yes. If it's
night, I want ice cream.
Same. And then for me, so that's like at home watching TV, watching a movie. But then when I go to the movies, peanut M&Ms, hands down. Really? That's my favorite. I keep a bag in my purse.
Wow.
Because you never know when you might go to an impromptu movie.
That's true.
So
I do, but
well, yeah.
You don't.
I don't.
You have AMC.
I have the A-list.
A-list
so
thing.
I go all the time. And it's so great right now because all the movies that were supposed to come out like last year that all got paused because of COVID, like they're all coming out now. So it's like this constant barrage of like movie after movie after movie. It's
especially the horror movies.
Well, yeah, and we're in horror movie season now. So.
I didn't know there was a horror movie season.
Well, yeah, Halloween.
Well, I heard it was summer and then Halloween were the two.
Like leading up to Halloween. Yeah.
Lucky me.
Ugh.
I hate horror movies.
You just don't have to go.
Oh, but I do.
Well,
that's all I'm going to say.
That's your own personal problem there, dear.
Oh, man. I do get snacks, though, so that helps.
Yeah. So.
And the seats are more comfortable than they used to be. If I had to go to the movies this much and sit in those uncomfortable, folding seats that we used to have to.
Still.
They still
I don't
have
go to that theater. It's awful.
Oh, that's good to know. I'm glad you said
don't go
that.
There.
Okay.
Go to North Point.
Oh, okay. For
anyway,
sure.
we can talk about that later.
And if you're from North Georgia, you know exactly what we're talking about. Okay, let's jump in.
Okay, so let's talk about pursuit, you guys. And I found a quote the other day that I think basically sums up pursuit in one quick sentence really, really well. And this is it. And it says, if they like you, you'll know. If they don't, you'll be confused.
That's so good.
And I just thought that was so well said, so concise, but so spot on. And as we go through this episode, we're really going to delve into what pursuit looks like. We're not going to just leave it at that. But I think a lot of it, as we go through these different points, is going to come back to this one concept. If you're confused and you're constantly wondering, then it's one of two things then. Either he's not pursuing you, or your expectations of what pursuit looks like are skewed, one or the other.
Yeah, that's true. And have I been in this camp more than once? And so I think the mentality I like to have going into an episode like this is, and I know Bethany feels the same way, we want to be compassionate and empathetic because we've both been here, but also be like the good friend that tells you what you need to hear, even if it kind of sucks in the moment. So because we've had to do that for each other, we have friends that have done that for us. We have, we've done that for other friends. So, we consider y'all friends. Yeah. We talk to y'all enough. You keep listening. So there are going to be some tough things to talk about here, but they are all rooted in love and us wanting, the best for y'all, because we don't want y'all to be in situations where you don't feel pursued, because nobody wants to feel that way.
And if you can learn from times where we learned that the hard way, we will save you from having to go the hard way.
Exactly. So we're going to kind of break this down. We're going to talk about what pursuit looks like either pre-dating or early dating. Yep. And then we'll also dive into what pursuit likes
look.
Yes. Golly, words, Kristen. What pursuit looks like when you're in a relationship, when you've been dating for a little bit, because it looks semi-different, but it also kind of looks the same, and it should continue.
Should be there.
Yes, it doesn't stop. So that's kind of how we're going to break this up. So let's start with talking about pre-dating, early dating, what pursuit looks like there.
Kick us off.
The first thing that I look for.
Well, and the funny thing, you don't have to look for it.
That's true. That's very true. You're reading ahead. No, you're exactly right. Is that you want somebody who he knows what he wants and he's not afraid to go after it. Like, that is the ideal picture of initial pursuit in my mind. And I'm telling y'all, there is nothing more attractive than a guy who is just straight up with you. He tells you he's interested in you. He asks you out with confidence. And it doesn't have to be, this movie worthy, monologue. It's just like, hey, Kristen, would you want to go get dinner this Friday?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the confidence part of it comes, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be this bold declaration, but the confidence comes through in that when he asks, why he's asking.
Yeah.
If a guy says, oh, hey, would you want to hang out? Maybe we could whatever. And you're like,
what does hang out mean? Yeah.
Are other people going? I'm not sure. If you're confused. Okay. But if a guy says, hey, I want to take you to dinner, you're going, oh, okay. I'm going on a date.
Yes.
Yeah. Or if he just straight up says, hey, I'm really impressed by you. I like you. I want to get to know you more. Whatever, why he's asking. That's pursuit.
And this is where, here's your tough love. Number one, we've got to stop settling for hangouts and we're just talking, because we don't want to wait for a guy who shoots straight, because it seems like they don't exist. They do exist. They're there. But in the meantime, we think, oh, well, we're hanging out. We're doing stuff.
Maybe he'll eventually go somewhere.
Yeah, maybe he'll take me to dinner.
I don't want to be too clingy.
Yeah, I don't want to be needy. I don't want him to think that, I've got these impossible expectations. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with expecting a guy to be like, hey, I would like to take you to dinner this Friday.
For the purpose of it being a date, so I can get to know you better and possibly doing it again.
Yes. Exactly.
It's not that hard.
It's not that hard. So look for that. And also for my... Speaking from experience, I'm laughing because I've done this.
For my younger self.
Yes, for my younger self and for my fellow friends who maybe have experienced a lot of the whole hang out and talking thing. Don't try to self-sabotage and talk yourself out of it when a guy does this.
Yes.
Because there have been times where I'm like, oh, it's probably not a date. Or oh, did he really mean that? Or I don't know. Because mom.
You're so used to them not.
My mom literally was like, Kristen, this is what you wanted. You literally say word for word. You just want a guy to ask you to go to dinner on a certain day. That happened.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You're like, oh, crap. I did ask for that, didn't I? Now he's doing it and I'm freaking out. We shouldn't freak out.
Yeah. Well, and I think this whole, you said, stop settling for quote unquote hangouts or just talking or whatever. And I think we get into this cyclical thing, not just personally, but culturally, of girls like to complain that guys aren't direct. They don't just say what they mean. They're not going after what they want. They're not pursuing. Mm-hmm. But then when the guy comes who is just kind of halfway doing things, when we can hang out, oh, let's just talk, oh, whatever, we jump in and we go with it and we let it be the thing and we just kind of let it go on and go on and go on. And yet we complain about not wanting guys to do that, but we don't ever... Why would they not? When they still get what they want and they don't have to put anything forward. And I'm not bashing guys. I'm just saying there's a cycle of we can help guys achieve a higher standard. We can help them pursue in a better way by not getting stuck in these endless hangouts and not being okay with that. As long as we're okay with it, as long as we let it continue, as long as we perpetuate that, it's going to continue happening. And that doesn't mean it should. This shouldn't be like this, even if we let it be. But it's the fact of what it is. And so I think, as hard as it is, because the guy's so cute and you've liked him for a while, and I'd rather just do this than nothing. You have to get to that place of saying, no, this is not pursuit. This is not a godly way of doing things, because there is all of this ambiguity and selfishness on both sides, and we're going to stop that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, tough love over.
Tough love is over. Yes. Okay. Next thing.
So the next one is, when you're in an early dating, pre-dating phase, he's going to be direct, and we kind of already touched on this, is there aren't going to be those guessing games of, is this a date? Is it not? Does he like me? Are we just friends? I don't know what's happening. He will be direct, and he will be a man and tell you, I am interested in you in a non-friendly way and would like to get to know you better to see if it's mutual. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he doesn't say it like that, because that was kind of weird. But if you find yourself trying to figure him out on a regular basis or attempting to just decode his behavior, that's not pursuit. If you're having to take your interaction with this guy that you think is interested or has said he is kind of interested, but you don't know what's going on, and you're analyzing every little eye contact and the way he said this and the way he looked at that and he laughed at this and he didn't laugh at that, and oh, well, he sat by me here and then he didn't talk to me for a whole day. If you're having to do all that stuff, that's not pursuit.
No.
And it doesn't necessarily mean he's not interested, but I would, in speaking from personal experience, I think he's not interested to the level that you are, probably, because when he is, you know it. Again, going back to at the top, if they like you, you'll know.
Yeah.
And I made excuses for that for a really long time. And I believe I'm wholeheartedly, if they like you, truly, you will know, and they will do something about it.
Exactly. And I think that's something too that was one of my biggest takeaways from our Men Tell All episodes that we've done so far, which if you haven't listened to those, you should.
Yes.
We'll link those in the newsletter.
There you go. We'll put them in the newsletter. Okay.
So guys, and I mean this, this is not this could sound insulting. I don't mean it insulting.
It's just a statement of fact.
It's a statement of fact. Guys don't typically think about dating and relationships and interactions the way we do, in that they come at it from a much more direct, simplified approach when they like somebody. So in other words, they're not into subtlety. You know, we talk about, I'm trying to give subtle hints. I think it was one of them was like, don't do that. We don't pick up on it.
We don't know, and then we know you're annoyed about something.
Yeah, and we don't know what it is. And then you're subtle about why you're annoyed, and then we can't get that either. If he likes you, again, you'll know. So you're not looking for like, because again, our girl brains think, I would do this, and I would make eye contact this way, and I would smile here, and I would say this, and I wouldn't do that. So if he does those things, then he means the same thing. No, he's probably either like smiling just because it's like, she looked at me, so I feel like I probably should, so I'm not rude. Or, it's so much more direct and cut and dry, I think, than our spaghetti minds and their waffles are very different. And so don't overcomplicate it, I guess, would be my thinking there.
Yeah. Also, another previous thing you might want to go back and listen to, in addition to the mental walls, we did a couch cast. Was it last season? The one on breadcrumbing?
I think it was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. Just look up breadcrumbing in your podcast app or whatever for hours. And I remember it because we had to learn what the term meant. Like, we hadn't heard this, but basically breadcrumbing is like when a guy just kind of leaves a trail of breadcrumbs. He's kind of stringing you along, and a lot of times I think it means he'll act one way on social media and a different way in person, or he'll text you but then he ignores you in person, and I feel like that's just straight up manipulation. That's not pursuit. That's not indicative of someone who truly cares about you. And so I think we have to get to a place where we say, okay, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna accept that. And as hard as it is, you've got to really cut it off there. But I think that would be another good episode to go back and listen to when you're talking about trying to evaluate, is this guy interested? Is he pursuing? Where do we stand in this like early dating, pre-dating stage?
Yes, and we'll link that one in the newsletter too. And then the last thing in regards to pre-dating, early dating that you're looking for when it comes to looking for a guy who pursues you is that he treats you differently than he treats other girls.
Yes.
So a guy can be, sweet and attentive and give you a lot of time and attention and all those things, but if he's doing the same thing with other girls too, that's not pursuit, that's flirting. All right.
Shamelessly.
Yes. And there's a difference because, you can flirt with multiple people. You can pursue more than one person, but you don't want somebody who does that. And even then, you're not fully pursuing anybody. So you're looking for those things. You want him to be sweet and attentive and, kind and paying extra attention to you and remembering things you've told him, whatever. But you want to be able to tell that that's specific to you. And if it is, then girl, you are on the right track. Yes. Good for you. But if it's not, if you're noticing like, he's kind of doing that with her, and like we've had that similar conversation, or he, I don't know. I mean, you think about from a girl standpoint, like, she gave him the arm touch. But she gave him the arm touch too. Like whatever the equivalent is for guys for that. Like you don't want to see similar behavior in that sense with other girls. You want to be able to tell a difference. And that's when you'll know like, okay, he's pursuing me because he's not doing this with other people. He's not talking to other girls this way. And then if he is, then you're gonna want to back away slowly.
Yes, step away slowly.
Yes.
Nobody gets
no
hurt.
Sudden movements. No.
Okay, so I think that kind of rounds out the ones we had for like pre-dating. You're trying to figure out if a guy's interested, and then early dating, like what does that pursuit start to look like? But I think a lot of times that's the only context that we talk about pursuit in, is you've just started dating. You're about to start dating, like this guy is pursuing and he's making his interest known. And it's very valid. It's a big part of it. But I really don't think once you are officially dating, you've been dating for a little while, and then you are like officially in a relationship that's going more long term, pursuit shouldn't stop just because of that. And so I wanted to let's take a look then at several things that should continue to happen, that should still be present, that should still indicate pursuit, even though you're in a relationship. Because I would venture to say, even up to and through marriage, pursuit should continue to be a thing. So,
absolutely.
First thing, and this is one that has been very telltale for me when it comes to, is this guy is he losing interest? Like, is he not? Is he backing away? Is he initiates conversation in person? He initiates conversation over the phone. He texts you. And I feel like if you feel like you're having to chase him down, or like all of a sudden, like you're constantly having to be the one to bring stuff up or talk to him, or if you never started the conversation, you're like, would he ever even reach out? That's not pursuit. That is not him continuing to pursue the relationship and to pursue you. And I think that's a big indicator of him making that effort. And I know in my experience, guys who I'm like, where you have no question that they're interested in you, going back to that quote at the very beginning, if he likes you, you'll know. Those are the guys that I have never wondered, because they initiated conversation, communication. Maybe conversation isn't the right word. They initiated communication and kept it going. You know, I think, was it Brett in the Men Tell All, speaking of that, who talked about, okay, if I like a girl, I'm terrified that the conversation's going to die.
Yeah,
so I will do whatever I
Yeah.
can to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And that has rung true in my experience. Guys who are legitimately really interested, if the conversation lulls or the conversation dies, they will pick it up and keep it going. And I think that's a big indicator that there is pursuit still happening there. And I think, too, does he bring up the tough subjects, quote unquote, you know, or do you always have to do it? Is he pursuing a deeper relationship by being willing to bring up those tougher things, being willing to bring up the bigger things? Maybe they're not tough as in like bad or negative, but like, you know, you start out, you're dating, it's fun, you're hanging out, but then, okay, it takes a step more where you're like, okay, well, now it's not like, oh, we're just dating, but okay, let's see if we line up on things that would move us towards marriage. And that's a big step in a relationship of like, okay, we're not just talking about right now. Is he willing, and does he bring up those things? Because when he does, he's showing that he is pursuing you and then also pursuing something deeper. And I think that's a big indicator.
Yeah, I think that depth is exactly what you're looking for there. And I think that kind of transitions into the next thing you want to look for, which is that he continually makes a point of getting to know you better. And a lot of times we talk about getting to know somebody in the sense of you've just started dating them, you're going out on your first few dates, you're learning about their family, what they do for work, what they're passionate about, what their interests are, about their faith, like all of that. But that's a lifelong thing. Like you're going to get to the point where if you marry somebody like years and years down the road, that you're going to know them better than anybody does. But there should be this sense of curiosity and like discovery that continues throughout your relationship. And so that means, you know, that effort to getting to know you on a deeper level shouldn't stop just because you're official now. You know, the question asking shouldn't stop because you're official now. And yeah, it may be more sporadic because it's going to be, you know, it's easier to talk to somebody when you know them super well. Like, you know, Bethany and I talk all the time about how when we see each other, it takes a while before questions get asked because we just talk. And so the longer you know somebody, that's going to be the case where you just talk. But then it's going to look like, okay, well, yeah, you're maybe talking about something and you realize, oh, I don't think I've ever asked him this. Okay, what do you think about this? Or like, what are your thoughts on that? Or have you ever done this? Or what's your experience been with this? And it's going to be more just kind of spur of the moment. Instead of, these are the questions that I need answered. It's now like, oh, I don't think we've talked about this before. Like, what do you think about this? And it's a lifelong pursuit. That's what that looks like, is just this effort of, I want, you know, you get to the point where I just want to know everything about him. And that the depth to the things you know about him is going to grow the longer you're with him. Yeah. And the same, you know, he should be doing the same thing. And so that's what you're looking for is there still that curiosity, that intentionality. Sorry. We need to have like a sound effect board every time somebody says intentional that we you're like, Bethany's favorite word.
Oh, man.
But I could have used your other favorite word.
So help me if you say it right now.
I won't.
I'm in charge of the editing. I can cut it out.
That's true. You could cut it. I won't do that.
Yes.
But yeah, just, you know, look and see and observe if he is making a point to continue getting to know you better.
Yeah, there shouldn't be this mentality of, okay, well, all the hard work's done. Like, we're together. It's official. And so now we can just kind of kick back,
ride it out,
relax. And cruise. But I do think there is this shift that happens. You were talking about how you're you're not asking all these questions. You don't have this list of questions that you need to find out as much once you move on. And I think in early dating, you're asking questions and you're getting to know this person for the purpose of, are we a good match? Are we compatible? Would we work together? And you ask all these questions and you figure out all this stuff. And then it's like, okay, all to the point of answering this big question of, do we work well together? Are we a good fit? And once you've answered that question, that pursuit and the question asking shifts from that to, okay, we're a good fit, we're in this, to, okay, now I really want to know you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like there's a subtle shift that
good.
happens that I think really changes kind of the trajectory of what that looks like.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Okay, so then this last thing that we have under, pursuit and what it looks like when you're dating and in a relationship, we actually had both kind of written down the same thing. We were making notes, and we had both written down, and then I realized, oh wait, she kind of already said this, so we're just gonna totally dive into it here. So the next thing is that you are going to see when someone is pursuing you and they care about getting to know you more, is that he is going to take note of things you've said. He's going to take note of things you like, interests you have, and then he's going to act on them to whatever extent is appropriate, and whatever that means, like whatever taking note of that and then acting on it looks like. It may be that he plans a date to this place you mentioned that you've been wanting to go, just kind of in passing. It's like, oh wow, he was listening to me. And does he take an interest in your interests because he cares about you? And I'm not saying that your random interest has to become his passion too, but does he make an effort to be knowledgeable about whatever it is at some basic level, because he cares about you and he wants to talk about it with you? Or at least, I guess, does he just not like write it off, when you start talking? He's like, talk to your friends about that or whatever. Like, does he, take an interest in it because you are interested in it? And I think more than a lot of these other things, this one really goes both ways. Like, you would need to do the same. This is a way to show that you are invested as well as you do the same thing. And this can be something as simple as, he has a favorite sports team and you could care less about whatever it is, but maybe you keep up with the score or who they played or how they did. Be like, oh hey, I saw that the Braves, that's who's here, I saw the Braves won yesterday. Like, because you care about him, you don't have to get all into baseball and know all the stats and the lineups and the batting averages and whatever else, but that's all I'm talking about. So the same thing, does he do that for you? Even if it's something that, left to his own devices, he wouldn't care 2 bits about.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on the flip side, I would say, are you constantly having to repeat things you've told him? If you are, I'm not saying it's like, oh, well, he's not pursuing me and we're done and we're breaking up. But like, that's a place where it's like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, we've talked about, like, I like this or I don't like that, or it just doesn't seem like you pay attention when I talk.
Yeah.
And it may be as simple as, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry, I will put my phone down and make an effort. Or what, like, it could be a simple fix as that. But if it's something that he doesn't seem to be really invested or present when you're talking and when he's not listening, that may turn into a bigger issue. Because I know, for me, that's one thing that really impresses me. So I'm a little more like in tune to it when someone remembers the things I talk about or the things I say. That really goes a long way with me personally. So I have to be careful with it because I can get too far gone. Like,
honed in on
remember
it.
anything I said when he probably did, and I'm being too much or whatever.
No, but I think this is so. I think it's underrated how important this is in relationships, because I think this is, a way that he can show you that you're important to him because he's paying attention to the things that are important to you.
Yeah.
And like, I remember this one time where I was dating this guy. We hadn't been dating super long at the time, and we had the conversation a few days before of like, what do you want to do when like you have a bad day?
Yeah.
Like what, and I was like, I just want to like sit on the couch and eat ice cream or order pizza. Yeah. Or maybe I said it was food related. Yeah. I was like, I want Chick-fil-A and ice cream, and I want to sit on the couch in comfy clothes and just watch TV and chill. And I was like, and if I have a boyfriend, I will add cuddling to the list. And he was like, okay. And then it wasn't a few days later, I had a really bad day. Yeah. Like, just some stuff with work had happened, and I was he had texted me. He's like, hey, like, how's your day? And I was like, it's been terrible, honestly. And I had kind of already forgotten that we'd even had that conversation. And he was like, okay, well, do you want to get like Chick-fil-A and come over tonight and watch a movie? And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah, you remembered. And he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. And it just made my whole day. It just totally turned my day around, because not only was it just, even if I'd never said that, it would have been sweet. But the fact that like, oh, you paid attention. Right. And you knew this is what I want when I have a bad day. Yeah. You have no idea like what that meant. Yeah. And it was just it was cool to experience, but then a good reminder of like, hey, this is what this is supposed to be like, And so it doesn't, again, this is something that's really easy to do too. Yeah. This isn't, this monumental thing that and again, he's not going to remember everything you say. All right. You're not going to remember everything he says. But if he is, again, showing a pattern of he's paying attention, he's listening, he's regurgitating things that you've told him, then that's a really, really good sign. And if he's not, then again, you have those conversations. If it's just a sense of, oh, he's on his phone a lot and y'all want to, talk about that, or if it's, okay, are you just not, are you somewhere else? Yeah. Are you, but have that conversation, because if he's interested and you're important to him, he's going to be paying attention, at least most of the time. Yeah. Okay. We all zone out every now and then.
Sure. And one thing, if you do need to have that conversation, unless you've already had it several times and you know what the issue is, you need to come at this conversation from a very non-accusatory place, because you don't you don't really know. There's a lot of assumptions and leaps being made until you've had this conversation. And so just come at it from I would say a question asking perspective. Yeah. Hey, it seems like this. Hey, I've noticed that. Hey, tell me more about that kind of thing.
Or even kind of come at it from a sense of, hey, you may not mean it this way.
Exactly.
But when this happens, this is how I feel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is how it comes across. Is that, do you just maybe like, I wanted to bring, help me understand. Cause you may not have even realized that. Right. And I don't want to assume you can read my mind. So let's talk about that and come at it from a sense of, you're doing this and that. Yeah. It's, hey, this is how it makes me feel when this happens.
And you can even say, hey, so when I do blah, 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 this is how I'm meaning it. This is what's going on for me. But I know that might not be the same for you. So I don't want to assume that you're the same as me. But so help me understand. Like that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So those are the things you look for when you're in a relationship, when you've been dating somebody for a while, that you're looking for pursuit. Those few things we just talked about are what you're, going to want to keep an eye out for. Now, one more question I want us to answer.
Okay.
Since we're talking about pursuit, because we get this question a lot, is should girls be the ones who are pursuing ever? Is that ever okay?
Yeah.
And you found a quote.
I did, and
that's
I love
so good. And so I'll let you read it.
Oh, thank you.
You're so welcome. No, I want you to read it because it's, this is so good, y'all.
It is good.
So good.
I don't know how many of y'all follow Jonathan Pokluda on Instagram. This is from one of his things on Instagram. You should. I just read his book Outdated, which we can put in the newsletter. Yes. It's fantastic. I highly recommend read it. Single, dating, whatever, read the book. It's really great. So anyway, someone had asked him the question, is it okay for a girl to make the first move? And so he said, sure. If by first move you mean, quote unquote, I'm interested in you. And then this was the kicker to me. He said, just know that in relationships, you choose your problems. It could be that you're choosing passivity as a problem. And he said, also, I think some guys are turned off by this, but I believe you are biblically allowed to initiate the relationship and express interest. And that sums up everything I've tried to wrap my head around and say. Like, we've tried to talk about this. That says it so well, because both of us have been the ones to initiate. Both of us have been the ones to make that first move. And we have both said, biblically, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, if you've been here from the beginning, you will have seen that evolution in us of when we first started this podcast 3-ish years ago, we both said, I've never asked a guy out, and I just don't think I could ever do it. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but we just didn't think we would ever do that. 3 years later, okay, now we both have.
Yeah.
And so there's been a change in our thinking and approach to that. And I would still say, I do not think there's anything biblically wrong with it. I don't know that it's a fine line of kind of like exactly what he said. It could be that you're choosing passivity as a problem. And in my experience, when I have pushed and pushed and pursued, that has been a problem that was part of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to decide to what extent it is a problem and all of that. And are you okay with it? Because I think passivity and being tentative and asking someone out is, okay, fine, whatever. That's one thing. It's not necessarily a sin issue, but in a marriage, a man being passive and not leading his family is a sin issue. So are you setting a pattern, and are you introducing a problem or bringing out a problem in your relationship now that maybe it's not a big deal right this minute, but will be a huge deal later?
Yeah.
And I love how he says, just know that in relationships, you choose your problems. No one's going to have a problem-free relationships, but it's a matter of deciding which ones are acceptable and which ones aren't. And in my experience, a lot of passivity is not a problem that I would like to have in a relationship.
I will second that, because the same went for me in the sense that like when I was the one that initiated, passivity was an issue.
Yeah.
And not only is that a problem, but just not that this is the most important thing, but it's not attractive.
Well, and it's funny because he says, I think some guys are turned off by it.
Yeah.
And so then you get into, okay, well, guys are turned off by girls who pursue to an extent. Girls are turned off by passivity. Mm-hmm. So then if everyone would just do what they should do, neither would be an issue. Yeah.
Well, because you go back all the way to the garden and Adam and Eve, mm-hmm. like when after, they ate the fruit, when, God's going through a whole, like, here are going to be your consequences. Uh-huh. One of the things is the woman would try to rule over the man. And so I think that's come out in dating.
Absolutely.
100%. And so, and I know I've heard all the statements. I've said a lot of them of like, there are no guys left who do this. And all the ones that are, doing all the pursuing are already married by now. And I just don't think there's anybody that's going to do, if I don't say something, nothing's ever going to happen. And we've talked about here, I think what we've kind of settled on is that you expressing interest, I wouldn't consider pursuit.
That's exactly what I was going to wrap back around to.
In the sense of, I can tell a guy, hey, I like you.
Would love to go out sometime.
Ball's in your court, buddy.
Yeah.
Do you want to go out with me? You can ask me out.
Yeah.
Now, basically, you have a foolproof question.
Yes.
Like, you can't fail.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to ask you out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start this off. It's just like, hey, I like you.
Yeah.
If you want to go out with me, you're more than welcome to ask me. Now, you don't have to be that sassy and straightforward, but I don't think it's pursuing to express interest, like he said. So
exactly. That's what I think. Yeah. Should you go back through this list of all the stuff we've just talked about? I am not going to be the person doing all of these things. Mm-hmm. That is pursuit. That's on him in my mind. I don't have a problem being the one to first express an interest and make it known. Hey, I like you. I'm interested in you. Would totally go out with you if you asked, kind of thing. But I am not going to be a continual pursuer once it moves past that.
Yes. I think the one thing, and I think you'll agree with me on this, but the one thing I'll kind of like come back with is the things we've talked about doing, being direct, going after what you want, treating, the person you like differently, initiating conversation. Those are all things I'm willing to do. I'm not going to be the one to lead out in doing those things.
Okay, yes.
I think that's what you were.
Yes.
I don't think you were trying to say that.
The first one, the one who's carrying the bulk of, the leadership in that.
Yes, I think that's because those are all good things.
Totally.
That you should do when you like somebody and that you care about someone, you want to be in a relationship with them. But I think the key,
to him doing
I am following his lead in those things, not being the pioneer in those different areas. So, and two, the more, like, at least in my experience, the more a guy's done that, the easier it is to kind of follow that lead. That confusion drops even more of, oh, well, he did this for me, so yeah, I'm going to go do this for him. Or like, he said this to me, so I feel comfortable saying this to him. And
he set the precedent.
Yeah, sets the tone.
And it's like, okay, this is the space we're operating in. And you're like, you feel free and safe to do that. And then as the relationship progresses, that is going to widen and change and deepen. And that's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so to wrap it up, I would say basically at its core, pursuit is him making the effort to show you that you are important to him and that he is placing a priority on your relationship. Now, to close this out, I want to leave you guys with this. This is going to look different for everyone. We've talked about some specific examples throughout this just to give you an idea, but just because your boyfriend or the guy you're interested in doesn't do like these specific things exactly doesn't mean he's not pursuing. It's going to look just like leadership looks different for different guys, so does pursuit. And so instead of trying to pigeonhole him into this idea of what you think pursuit looks like, look for ways that he is pursuing, look for things that he is doing and celebrate that. Don't try to make it be what you thought it should be, what someone else's guy did, or, oh, I wish someone would do that. Don't try to make it into that. And that's something that I've had to learn because I see things. I'm like, oh, well, so-and-so, her boyfriend did this, or so-and-so's boyfriend did that. And I'm like, well, why doesn't someone do? And when at the end of the day, I wouldn't even like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that type of pursuit works well for them. But then I'm like, well, I wish someone would do that. But then I'm like, but if they did, I would be like, why is he doing this?
Yeah.
So that's something that I've had to like really kind of get my head around and learn. So just realize it's going to look different, but there won't be that confusion there if a guy is really pursuing.
Exactly.
So you want to leave it there?
I say we leave it there.
Okay, guys, we will wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining us for another week. We have thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't remember off the top of my head if we have a couch cast or a backstage pass or anything this week. We do. Kristen's nodding her head. I think we do. So probably Friday we'll be back with that. If not, then you'll just know it's next week. But thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. If you would tell a friend about us, that would be awesome. Tell your friends to come and check us out. Leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcast app you listen to. That goes a long way in helping our show get in front of the people that it could be the most helpful for. So if you would do those things, we would appreciate it. And then we will be back next week. But until then, I'm Bethany.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is Looking for the Middle.